Excuse me, but there's nothing I can learn from some doctor in the middle of nowhere. Just make sure you don't get in my way. Oh, and if you'd like, you can assist me in surgery. I'm sure the difference in skill level will be obvious. Ha! For me, this place is nothing more than a stepping stone. A beautiful elite doctor who had just been transferred to this rural hospital suddenly started throwing insults at me when I greeted her as her senior. I was momentarily stunned by her sheer rudeness. What's so wrong about being a doctor in the countryside? I have my own reasons for being here, and I've worked hard to get to this point. I have no reason to be treated like a fool by some woman I've just met. Even after that, she continued flaunting her knowledge and skills, acting as if she owned the hospital. But one day, a critically ill patient was rushed into the ER. Faced with a patient requiring a complex surgery beyond her abilities, the female doctor panicked. I can't do this," she stammered, trying to refuse the patient. "I'll perform the surgery." As I stepped into the operating room, she collapsed to her knees, coming to a shocking realization. All around here, there's nothing but rice fields and farmland. In this rural general hospital, I, Ryan, work as a surgeon. I'm already past 45, just an old guy at this point, but my patients still chat with me like an old friend. "Dr. Thompson, have you found yourself a nice wife yet?" Well, if it were that easy, I wouldn't be struggling so much. When I step into the shared patient room for rounds, my patients greet me one after another. If not, I'll introduce you to my granddaughter. What are you talking about? Your kid's still in elementary school. Dr. Thompson, you should meet my niece instead. No way. My cousin's daughter would be a much better match for you. As usual, my meddlesome patients joke around, trying to set me up with someone. Especially Teresa, one of my long-term patients. Every time she sees me, she insists on finding me a wife. She's a kind-hearted old lady. Oh, come on now. You should know by now that I won't accept just any woman as your wife, Dr. Thompson. Among the elderly patients, one voice stands out. It's Michelle, the head nurse, feared by the staff as a relentless taskmaster. Look who's talking, Michelle. All the nurses here are already married. In a small town like this, there aren't that many single young women left. I tease her back, and everyone bursts into laughter. The hospital room feels more like a warm family living room. I love these little everyday conversations. By the way, Dr. Thompson, did you hear? We're getting a new doctor soon. Michelle, who had been laughing just moments ago, suddenly brings it up. Ha! A transfer at this time of year? Yes. Apparently, she's young, beautiful, and highly skilled, quite famous at her hospital in New York. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Does it? An off-season transfer like this makes me wonder if something happened. That's what concerns me more. I heard that she is a young and beautiful female doctor, and I am certainly curious about her. Perhaps because I live in a rural town with little stimulation. But as long as she's a decent person, I'm fine with it. That's what I thought, until my expectations were shattered within minutes of meeting her. Nice to meet you. My name is Luna. I trained in cardiovascular surgery at a university hospital in New York and studied advanced medicine in the US. To be honest, I'm not happy about being sent to a place like this, but no matter the hospital, I'll do my best to provide top-quality medical care. From the very start, her introduction made it clear she looked down on this rural hospital. Sure, she was beautiful, almost like a movie star, but that wasn't the issue here. With one hand on her hip and her chin tilted at a condescending 45-degree angle, she looked down at everyone. Michelle and the other nurses exchanged cold, unimpressed glances. Sensing things might go south quickly, I decided to speak up. I'm Ryan Thompson. I've been working at this hospital as a doctor for 10 years now. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. At that moment, she suddenly glared at me as if I had stepped on a landmine. Ha! Excuse me, but there's nothing I can learn from some doctor in the middle of nowhere. Just make sure you don't get in my way. Oh, and if you'd like, you can assist me in surgery. I'm sure the difference in skill level will be obvious. Ha! For me, this place is nothing more than a stepping stone. She looked down on me with a condescending attitude, insulting me outright. Her eyes held the same disdain as if she were looking at a worthless insect. I was momentarily stunned by the sheer audacity of her words. Everyone in the nurses' station was just as shocked, mouths slightly agape, mirroring my reaction. It was as if we had just been handed the hospital's worst transfer case in history, and everyone was thinking the same thing. But no matter what kind of person she was, a doctor was still a doctor. And to her credit, she was skilled as she had trained abroad, after all. Her handling of patients was efficient, and her instructions to the nurses were precise and thorough. I couldn't deny that she worked with impressive efficiency. But when it came to interacting with people, she was absolutely terrible. She looked down on everyone, both staff and patients alike. I honestly wanted to meet her parents and ask how they managed to raise such a self-centered woman. Lately, patients had even started requesting to be reassigned from Dr. Sanders, complaining that she was too cold and unapproachable. One day, Sophie, a senior nurse with years of experience, came to me in tears. "Dr. Thompson, can't you do something about Dr. Sanders?" What happened? Did she do something again? Apparently, Sophie had been on the night shift with Luna the night before. During her rounds, she noticed that one of the dementia patients was missing from his room. Panicked, she searched the hospital and found him curled up near the front lobby, trying to go home. Having experience with dementia patients, Sophie carefully listened to him, soothed him, and gently guided him back to his room. The patient, grateful for her kindness, calmed down and spent the rest of the night peacefully. But because she had spent extra time caring for the patient, she ended up slightly delayed in administering IVs and other treatments. Unfortunately, Luna had shown up at that exact moment for rounds, and when Sophie didn't arrive at the treatment room on time, she exploded. Following instructions on time is basic protocol. Are rural nurses incapable of even that? This is unbelievably low level. Sophie, though frustrated by the unfair scolding, admitted that being late was wrong and sincerely apologized. Do you think everything is solved with a simple apology? Even a monkey can pretend to be sorry. Oh, wait, my mistake. You're worse than monkeys. Aren't you? That was the last straw for Sophie. Clenching her fists, she explained why she had been delayed. But Luna's response was even worse. Wasting time listening to a dementia patient? What a joke! Just put them to bed. You can't even handle that? If you're that incompetent, maybe you should quit being a nurse. The entire nurses' station fell into a heavy silence. At that moment, Luna had made enemies of every single nurse. Hospitals are busy places around the clock, especially during night shifts, where a handful of staff members have to care for dozens of patients. Doctors and nurses work together as a team to keep things running smoothly. Naturally, teamwork is crucial for everyone. It was an unspoken rule that everyone worked together, but she had just broken that unspoken code. Luna, don't you think that was a bit too much? Everyone here is doing their best, I said. The moment I spoke, her hostility immediately turned to me. Ha! A backwater doctor who can't even perform proper surgeries is going to lecture me? Do you really think you're in a position to criticize me? I don't care if this is the countryside. I'm here to provide the best medical care. Unlike you, an old man with zero ambition. So just stay out of my way. Before I could respond, someone else snapped. Dr. Sanders. With all due respect, Dr. Thompson is far more. Michelle, it's fine, I interrupted cheerfully. Come on, the staff is waiting. Let's just get to work. Michelle shot Luna a sharp glare but swallowed her words and returned to her duties. The other nurses, though visibly fuming, also turned back to their work. And just like that, the nurses' quiet retaliation began. Never make an enemy of the nursing staff. An older doctor once told me that, and now I was witnessing exactly what he meant. The nurses collectively began to avoid any interaction with Luna. "Hey, can you prepare this for me?" "Sorry, I'm busy right now." "Ah, then, how about you over there?" "I'm heading out for surgery prep." Whenever she tried to ask for help with preparations or needed something, she was met with, "I'm busy right now," as people walked right past her. It was, in a way, a localized boycott by the nursing staff. Of course, no harm ever came to the patients. It was simply her own fault, but now, all the tasks the nurses used to handle were left for Luna to do herself. Naturally, this took extra time and effort. She was too proud to complain, but the increasing workload was visibly wearing her down. Lately, she didn't even have the energy to hurl insults anymore. "Hey, Michelle, maybe it's time to let her off the hook?" I asked Michelle, who responded with a wry smile. "It's not like I'm deliberately bullying her." The staff just completely despises Dr. Sanders at this point. Still, do you think you could help smooth things over? You're right. I was actually starting to think this might be going too far. I'll talk to everyone. Thanks, I appreciate it. Just as we were trying to mend the strained relationship between Luna and the nursing staff, it happened. Luna, who had stubbornly tried to handle everything on her own, suddenly collapsed in the middle of a procedure. Seeing her face go pale as she lost consciousness, I immediately carried her to the on-call room, placed her on the bed, and began treating her with IV fluids. As I examined her, her slightly unbuttoned shirt revealed a large surgical scar on her chest. The diagnosis: exhaustion, anemia, and severe sleep deprivation. Why was she pushing herself this hard? Her actions seemed desperate, as if she were running from something. It made me wonder if there was a reason behind her arrogant manner toward herself and those around her, as well as her stubborn refusal to acknowledge anyone. When she finally regained consciousness, I told her plainly, "You're suffering from anemia caused by extreme fatigue and lack of sleep. I gave you some vitamins and iron supplements." I deliberately avoided saying, "Are you okay?" Somehow, I felt that simple question would only wound her pride. Watching her work so recklessly, like someone walking into a storm without an umbrella, made me uneasy. How long was I asleep? About an hour, I'd say. I see. I'm sorry for causing trouble. She had suddenly become so subdued that it caught me off guard. Still, I decided to tell her what had been on my mind. I can't say much as I used to collapse from exhaustion a lot when I was a young doctor, too. But if you keep this up, you're going to destroy your health. I know you might not like it, but I went ahead and examined you. You're showing signs of arrhythmia. You've had heart problems before, haven't you? She hesitated, then answered, "Yes." Look, I'm not trying to criticize you. I don't know why you're in such a rush, but this isn't sustainable. It's counterproductive. And the situation with the nurses, if you just talked to them properly and treated them as professionals, they'd be willing to help. If you push yourself until you break, what's the point? If the doctor collapses before the patient is saved, then lives that could be saved won't be. You're absolutely right. What have I even been doing all this time? As if something had finally lifted off her shoulders, she slowly started talking, tears spilling down her cheeks. She had been born with a congenital heart condition, one so severe that she could barely move as a child. Even surgery offered only a slim chance of survival. Because of how risky the procedure was for a child with little physical strength, most hospitals refused to take her case. Would I just fade away like this? Would I never get to run on the ground or laugh out loud like the other children? Would she have to spend her entire life confined to a bed? She saw the constant worry in her parents' eyes and wished she could ease their burden. And if she couldn't, maybe it would be better if she just disappeared altogether. Even as a child, she had lived side by side with death. Then, one day, a young doctor from a university hospital in New York came forward, saying he wanted to perform her surgery. He was always busy, always rushing around, yet whenever he spoke to her, he was full of warmth and laughter, easing her fears. And despite the doubts of more experienced doctors, he succeeded in the highly complex surgery. Her recovery was smooth, and before long, she was well enough to leave the hospital. For the first time, she was able to live the life she had only dreamed of. And her parents could finally smile again. Being alive and able to share a life full of smiles with her family. There was nothing made her happier than that. At some point, she began to dream of becoming a doctor like the one who had saved her. She wanted to help others who, like her younger self, were suffering without hope for the future. From that moment on, she threw herself into her studies with everything she had and eventually earned her medical license. But what awaited her was a harsh reality. No matter how hard she worked, she still felt like she wasn't even close to the doctors she admired. In the medical field, female doctors had a weaker standing, and gaining surgical skills required overcoming countless hurdles. I wanted to join research groups, but they wouldn't even let me into the professor's lab, saying, "What's a woman getting so full of herself for?" In the department, sexual harassment from senior male doctors was just part of daily life. That's why I decided to study in the US. But when I returned to Japan, things got even worse. I finally worked up the courage to report it to the professor, and then the professor, not wanting a scandal under his own roof, forcefully transferred her to this rural hospital. And so, they forcibly transferred her to this rural hospital to sweep the issue under the rug. She had learned the hard way that if she showed any weakness, she would be looked down on and mistreated. So she had built a shield of harsh words and arrogance to protect herself. Desperate to prove herself and become like the doctor who once saved her, she had pushed herself too hard and lost sight of everything. Tears streamed down her face as she admitted it. "I see, so that's what happened." I nodded. "But Luna, pushing yourself like this isn't the answer. The doctor who saved you didn't do it so you could destroy yourself. You need to take better care of yourself. A doctor who can't take care of themselves can't save anyone else either." "You're right. I've just been rushing forward, losing sight of everything. And now that I think about it, I said some truly awful things to you and everyone else. Yeah, I won't lie. It was pretty rough." I chuckled. "But instead of making excuses, why not just apologize properly? Do you think they'll really forgive me?" Actually, I asked Michelle for a little help. I wanted to see if she could help smooth things over between you and the nurses. I said such horrible things to Michelle, too. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll get on my knees and apologize as many times as necessary." From that moment on, Luna seemed like a completely different person. Taking a deep breath in front of the nurse's station, she suddenly raised her voice. "I just want to say that I've been incredibly rude to all of you, and I am truly, truly sorry. From now on, I promise I won't say anything disrespectful again. I've finally realized that I can't do anything without your help. Please, forgive me." She walked into the nurse's station, dropped to her knees, and pressed her forehead to the floor. The nurses were visibly stunned. "Come on now, everyone," Michelle said. "Aren't you going to apologize to Dr. Sanders for giving her the cold shoulder, too?" Looking uncomfortable, Sophie and the others exchanged glances before finally speaking. "Well, we were pretty immature about it too. Let's call it even, all right? So please, Dr. Sanders, raise your head. Let's start fresh. You guys." Overwhelmed with emotion, Luna started crying, and Michelle gently patted her back like a mother comforting a child. The patients in the ward watched the scene unfold with warm, knowing smiles. At last, things seemed to have settled. Or so I thought until yet another crisis struck. A critically ill patient, one we should never have been expected to handle in a rural hospital like this, was rushed in. The patient, a child, suffered from a rare and severe heart condition. Most likely, some kind of strain had triggered an attack, putting immense stress on the heart. It was a race against time. Normally, this child would need emergency surgery immediately. But the difficulty of that operation was something Luna knew all too well. After all, the very condition this child had was the same one she had struggled with her entire life, the one she had always dreamed of treating but never had the chance to. Heart surgery demands absolute speed and precision. The procedure requires temporarily stopping the heart while establishing an external circulation route. A child's heart is incredibly small and delicate, making the operation even more challenging. On top of that, many children simply can't withstand the physical strain of such a procedure. I can't do this. There's no way I can perform this surgery, Luna muttered, her voice shaking. But Dr. Sanders, the child won't survive long enough to be transferred to another hospital. It's impossible. Impossible. I can't do it. As she trembled in fear, I spoke with calm determination. I'll perform the surgery. What? Ryan, even for you, this operation is impossible. You can't do it. Then what, we just give up? Whether it's impossible or not, if there's even the smallest chance, we have to take it. And besides, I do have the skill and confidence to pull this off. So how about I show you just what a so-called rural doctor can really do? With that, I immediately began preparing for surgery. As Michelle efficiently issued orders to the staff, Luna stood frozen in place, completely stunned. Dr. Sanders, Dr. Thompson will be fine. Believe it or not, when it comes to surgery, there's no one better than him. Just trust him and assist in the operation. Hearing those words, she finally snapped back to reality. But that child's condition is the same as mine. Even at a university hospital, only a handful of doctors can perform this surgery, so why? Without answering, I swiftly and skillfully proceeded with the surgery, leaving no room for her doubts. This was a side of me she had never seen before. And then, after 8 intense hours, the operation was a success. Later, Michelle told me that the child who had been rushed in was actually Teresa's grandson. Apparently, he had suffered an attack while traveling to visit his grandmother. I had often seen Teresa keeping a photo of her grandson by her bedside. She had always worried about his condition and told me that every day at home, she would visit a small roadside shrine, praying for his health. She often smiled and said she wanted to get better soon so she could see him again. By sheer coincidence, I had been able to save her grandson's life. And for that, I was truly grateful. After the surgery, Luna suddenly approached me with an intense energy. Ryan, that surgery was incredible. Your hemostasis, suturing, and arterial management were flawless. I've never seen a surgeon execute such a complex technique so perfectly. Where did you learn to do that? I never meant to keep it a secret. It's just that we rarely see complex cases like this here. But yeah, before coming here, I used to specialize in cardiac surgery at a university hospital in New York. What? You were a cardiac surgeon at a university hospital in New York? Yeah. I guess I've always been good with my hands. When I first joined the department, they let me assist in surgery right away. I happened to do well, which made my senior doctors resent me. I became their favorite target. So you've done this kind of surgery multiple times before? Oh, more times than I can count on both hands. Luna suddenly seemed uneasy, shifting her gaze as if hesitating to ask something. She opened her mouth to speak, stopped, then tried again. By any chance, was the hospital you worked at ex-medical university? Huh? Yeah, it was. Why? I'm Luna. Don't you remember me? We once cried together while singing an anime theme song. I'm that Luna. Wait, what? No way. Lulu? Yes. Ryan, I've wanted to see you for so long. To my surprise, the hospital where Luna had been treated as a child was the same university hospital where I had worked. And as we talked, we realized something even more shocking. I was the surgeon who had performed her operation all those years ago. Back then, I had been so overworked and exhausted that I was practically skin and bones. It was no wonder she hadn't recognized me now. I couldn't believe the coincidence myself. When I asked around at X-Medical University about you, they told me no such doctor existed. I searched for you for so long but eventually gave up. Ah, that's probably because the current professor hates me. What? Why would someone as talented as you be hated? That makes no sense. Seeing how furious she was on my behalf, I gave a wry smile and decided to share a bit of my past. The truth was, my father had also been a doctor. He was the kind of man who put his patients before everything, even his own family. At the time, he had been a rising star at the university hospital, but the current professor, who was just an associate professor back then, saw him as a threat. Even at the island clinic, my father dedicated himself to his patients, but in the end, overwork took his life. I later heard from a colleague that my father had been personally chosen by the previous professor to be his successor. That's why the current professor saw him as a rival and got rid of him. That's also why I hate hospital politics and all those ridiculous power struggles. I had no idea. But earlier, you said you still had things you wanted to do here. Do you have some kind of goal, even now? What did I want to do? The answer had always been the same: to save as many lives as possible. But no matter how skilled I was, there was a limit to what one person could achieve. If more doctors could perform complex surgeries, more lives could be saved. Then, what if we made it so any doctor could handle advanced procedures? That became my mission. If a patient's body could be projected in 3D, allowing doctors to physically interact with it, they could train on a precise model before the actual surgery. This would significantly reduce the failure rate. I have been working with a major imaging diagnostics research institute in this region to develop that very technology. That's amazing. You absolutely have to make this a reality. And when you do, I want to be the first one to train with it. That might not be such a bad idea. After hearing about my dream, Luna became determined to absorb as much of my knowledge and skills as possible. From then on, she started following me around every day. Now, wherever I go, she shows up. It's gotten to the point where the entire hospital jokingly calls her my stalker. To outsiders, it might look like that, but to me, she seems more like a little chick following its parent. It's strangely endearing. She openly expresses her feelings toward me, but I'm not foolish enough to expect anything from someone nearly young enough to be my daughter. Meanwhile, Teresa, who had been staying in the shared ward, was discharged safely. Now, she's enjoying a peaceful life in the countryside with her grandson. She still visits my outpatient clinic without fail once a month. Dr. Thompson, have you finally found yourself a nice wife? If not, I can. Oh, come on, Teresa. Stop trying to set up Dr. Thompson with someone. My, Dr. Sanders. Oh, wait, could it be? Yes, that's exactly it. So, no meddling. Oh, I see. So Dr. Thompson finally found someone special. That's wonderful. I need to tell everyone at the senior club. Teresa and Luna, quit teasing an old guy like me. Oh no, Ryan. I'm completely serious. I'm aiming to be your wife. What? 2 years later, the project I had been working on finally became a reality, revolutionizing medical education. University hospitals, as centers for training doctors, eagerly adopted the system. However, X Medical University, upon discovering my name listed as a co-developer, refused to implement it. As a result, X Medical University fell behind in producing skilled doctors, significantly losing ground to other institutions. Their application rates dropped drastically, and in the end, the professor who had opposed me quietly disappeared from the university. Before I knew it, being with Luna had become a natural part of my life. Her relentless pursuit finally won me over, and we ended up getting married. Yes, it was a May-December romance, but I now had a beautiful, hardworking, and genuine wife. I was truly happy. I became a doctor to save lives. But along the way, I learned firsthand that no field is free from corruption and injustice. Hierarchical power struggles, conflicting interests. These distortions change form depending on the situation, sometimes growing overwhelmingly large. There were times when I felt like giving in, when I nearly lost sight of my goals. But in the end, I have arrived at a place much closer to my dream. Now, together with my wife, I am working to revitalize regional healthcare. To some, I might look like a failure who strayed from the elite path of city doctors. But as long as you have the courage to keep moving forward and a goal to strive for, things will eventually work out somehow. Whether that happens soon or decades from now, I can't say. But one thing is certain. The effort you put in today will always become your strength in the future. Believing in that, I take another step forward toward tomorrow,